and then I'll make you co-host. Hi, everyone. Let me quiet this down, and then I'll make you. There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our book study. It's so good to see everyone again this week. Welcome, and welcome, Jenny. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone.
Jenny and I always meet for a few minutes before we start, but I think it's important that we open together. And this isn't I'm the host and she's the co-host. Well, this is a host and host experience, and Jenny is invaluable to our experience being awesome. And thank you all for being here to join with us as we look together at the Perfume of Silence. We're looking at chapter 6 this week. There is no time at all times. And these titles are pretty interesting too, I would say. Where would you like to start, Jenny?
Well, why don't we start at the beginning of the chapter then? So,
okay.
With the first question was, during meditation, I'm aware of something localized in a particular place in the body. It's an experience of silence. It's where I would say I am. And that localized something is an object, as Francis explains. And it's actually the sense of me that we talked about last week. So it's a very pleasant, sweet feeling. And for that reason, it's very easy to confuse this with our real identity, which is a noumenal experience, but it's actually an object, whereas silence isn't an object, and silence isn't localized anywhere in the body. We have to be careful that we don't mistake a blank state for what we really are, and for meditation. Staying in a blank state isn't meditation.
Right.
So he says silence is that which remains after an experience has vanished, whether that experience is a thought, a feeling, a sensation, or a perception. It is silence, not the object that is the experience, which matters. It's always in the present and never in the past. And he's using silence in the way that the questioner is using the word silence to mean the absence of experience. As Richter asked in his question, silence, you can use silence in a much broader sense to mean silence, which is the silence of our true nature, which shines in all experience. You can use it in that sense, but he's not using it so much in that sense. Here, when he's responding to this person, he's saying, well, in this case, you're associating the silence with a blank state. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting that the idea, we're talking about the blank state, but it's also something that when many people first become aware of this understanding, it's often they think of the localized awareness as being the silence, or they call it the observer as well.
Yes.
And they think of the observer as the awareness, and then they sort of confuse it because there's an activity involved.
Yes, exactly, and they confuse it with awareness without objects. And if you, the real awareness without objects, it is not that kind of nothingness of a blank state. It's very much a fullness, and it's absolutely effortless. Whereas normally, as you say, a blank state is something that you have taken some effort to reach, usually, and often that's that's through love of the teaching. You think, well, I need to get beyond all objects. I need to get to the subject of experience beyond all objects. So you try and you try and you try, and you end up in this blank state. And that's what the problem is, that the real consciousness without objects, awareness without objects, is completely effortless.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this statement where he says that, this rings with such truth, this one sentence. Silence is that which remains after an experience has vanished.
Yes, yeah.
Whether the experience is it's at the end of the word, and there's that space, that spacious space that's between the words.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes.
Everything vanishes right there.
Mm.
It's the pause.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's on page 70, and if anyone has any questions, just put a Q in front of your question and write it in the chat, or raise your hand and we'll pick up any questions or comments from there. There's on page 76, turning the page, I like what Francis says about listening. It's just so succinct. Listening implies welcoming our experience as it is, without subsequent thought, comment, judgment, interpretation, or analysis. It implies simply being. Open to these messages and allowing them to flow through us. The purpose of the message is to take us back to the one who has sent it. It is the invitation to the castle. I just thought that was so well stated. It just felt like it had a presence.
Yes, and it's how he starts all of his meditations. It's always with establishing that state of listening.
Yeah. And listening implies welcoming our experience as it is. So that means welcoming whatever is happening, whatever is occurring.
Yes.
Welcoming it puts us in a place where we can hear.
Yes. Yes.
Or feel or know, or however you experience whatever way that it comes in that intuitive experience.
Yes. Yes.
There's a continuation of this on page 79, I think. I have a note here that says something about 79, but it says, from 76, all sensations, like all thoughts. He at the top of the page, he talks about, well, let me look at the question first. What is the essential difference between positive and negative emotions, was the question in this essay, but at the top of page 79, it felt like it was a continuation from page 76, where he says, all sensations, like all thoughts, are dynamic. They are in motion. They move and change, some slowly, some fast. However, because they are dynamic, they have a shelf life. They are no longer supported by the I thought, by the thought. He did this to me, or it talks about a victim. He did this to me, so I am justified, etc. Being unsupported, they will evolve and change and eventually dissolve, although that is of no concern to us. We have to be sure that there is no ulterior motive in our welcoming. If we secretly harbor the desire to get rid of an unpleasant sensation, then this desire itself will become another layer of resistance, of refusal, of contraction in the body. So I think it was just really, I was referring to the welcoming piece of that.
Yes, yeah, yes, exactly. We welcome both the pleasant feelings, and we don't try to hang on to those. We don't resist things that we label unpleasant, and in fact, we just don't label. That's really what welcoming is just not labeling at all.
Yeah, yeah. The big I mean, I like the way he gives us sort of later on he gives a litmus test for whether you're trying to get rid of something or not. But the way I felt it come in the first time was when Rupert, I was at a retreat, a garrison retreat, and Rupert was talking to someone. He was working with someone in the audience, and when he said to welcome this experience and welcome it to stay around for the rest of your life, welcome it to just always be there. That made a significant impact on me, because I realized, okay, so this isn't just accepting it. This is loving it. Oh, you're welcome to come, bring a chair, bring your favorite drink and stay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that was a continuation from page 76, and then the next question on page 76 is in the second paragraph. What is the difference between feelings and bodily sensations? I felt like this was a real stumper.
Yes, yes. I mean, he explains that feelings are felt as bodily sensations, but very often they have a component in the mind, a thought or a story associated with them, and that mental component, particularly if they're, or definitely if it's a negative feeling, will be triggered by a belief in being a separate entity. That he says that then later on he goes on to say, well, some of the feelings we experience are unpleasant bodily sensations, but without any corresponding thoughts or mental agitation. And those are the suppressed feelings that were not fully processed when they were originally experienced. And it's those feelings that find hiding places in the body. So what he says is that's on page 77 or Kindle page 68, we live primarily in activities and thinking and relatively little in feeling or perceiving. This lack of awareness at the bodily level means that we have little sensory knowledge of, for instance, our diaphragm or our face. And because we're unaware of them, they're ideal places for feelings such as fear to hide. And it's for this reason that we include the body in our meditation.
Mm. It's interesting. I started a regimen about 4 or 5 months ago of exercising every day. And I never did that before, but I was on the bicycle this morning and I was playing a game with awareness where I was aware of the breathing. I was aware of a drop of sweat that was getting ready to drip off the nose. I was just being aware of any kind of sensation that was occurring as a result of the exercise. Just playing with
Yeah.
with with those types of sensations, and not from a place of labeling it, but before that.
Yes. I think it's really good at times when we're not in any pain. We're just enjoying and doing whatever we're doing to experiment with being aware of the body. It's much harder if you're in physical pain, and it's much harder when you have some of these very deep, uncomfortable feelings like fear or this what he calls an impending sense of doom, which are the very deep feelings at the core of the separate self. But if
Yeah.
we can have some experience before anything like that happens, then and just get used to how we actually feel the body, then I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right that it is much harder when there's a real intense pain. It's much
Yeah.
because it feels like you can't give the space of contemplation. It's just so strong that you can't give the space to be the seer without the experience or the judgment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It comes so close. So it would be advantageous to to play with it when in a space where you can.
Yes. Absolutely. He says, I think it's on page 78 or Kindle page 69. He says something interesting about getting things back into balance. He says these localizations in the body where subliminal feelings lurk are like dense clusters of energy. They're contracted areas that occupy our attention at the expense of other areas that are neglected. In this way, a polarity is created between tension and dynamism on the one hand, and areas in the body of which we are not aware on the other. If we give these neglected areas the attention they deserve, the two poles of the battery are put in contact, so to speak, and the tension is discharged. The system goes back to a state of balance and stability. And I think that was a very interesting way of putting it, which in a way is a little different from what Rupert teaches, because it's saying don't neglect the other areas of the body where you're not feeling any discomfort, either psychological or physical. Don't neglect those other areas. So when we do the body sensing meditations, it's important not to focus our attention on specific areas of tension or discomfort, but to be aware of those sensations if they are there in context so that we can bring the body back to balance. If we're focusing on uncomfortable sensations, then that's almost certainly because we've got a hidden agenda to get rid of them. And it's a mistake that I've seen a lot of people make, is to focus on uncomfortable sensations if we just notice them in context, then they can be welcomed as part of the whole, as part of the universe.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a really important distinction, very subtle.
Yes. Yeah.
And for any of you that are here that do that know Ellen Emmett, Rupert's wife, she is amazing at bringing you into meditation to integrate the body experience from a place of pure presence of awareness.
Yes, she does that very beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great application of this idea. He,
Yes.
he says on page 77, one of the obstacles to it's the third paragraph down on page 77. One of the obstacles to processing our feelings is that they find, oh, this is what you said, they find hiding places in the
Yes.
body.
Yeah.
You've
Yes.
already said that.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
on page 78, Kindle page 69. He says, and this is really what you were doing this morning, Bill. So we have to allow some time during the day for listening to body sensations without expecting anything, just seeing the body and allowing it to reveal itself as it is. So I
Yeah,
think that's
it's
very
great to
important.
play games with that stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
because it is creating a new set point, a new, so that the hiding places aren't so well hidden.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because the things are so subtle, when you think about especially bodily sensations, how many go on that we never even notice because we're too active in our attention to really be to catch those subtler
Yes,
experiences.
yes.
There's
What do you think?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, what do you think about trying a body meditation, a different tantric technique
Yes,
to
yes,
to
let's
to
do that.
explore
You,
the body? There's a nice method which is very much a whole body method, which I found very useful.
sounds good to me. I see everyone adjusting themselves to let's do this.
Good, good.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so sit as comfortably as you can. Close your eyes and just allow all experience to flow through unimpeded. Sounds, thoughts, bodily sensations, all experience without focusing on any one thing. Then very gently allow the experience of the body to come to your attention, but don't focus on any one part of it. Just be aware of the entire sensation of the body. So that's not the image of the body or a thought about the body, it's just pure sensation. Now, keeping your eyes closed, imagine you've been asked to draw a picture of the sensations of the body. Again, not the shape of the body, not any kind of image of the body, just a representation of your experience of the body through sensation. So you've got a sheet of paper and a soft pencil, and you're just going to make marks on the paper. Just visualize that. You don't need to actually do it. Just visualize doing that. So you move around the whole body, just making marks, representing the sensations that you encounter from your head to your toes, all of it. If you find there are any lines occurring on the paper, then look again and see whether the sensations are really best represented by a line, or whether they're better represented by little dots or splodges. Now have a look at the overall shape. if it's resembling in some way a human form, then that indicates that somehow you are superimposing onto the sensations you experience your conceptualization of a human body. And just have a look again and see that the sensations are just an amorphous mass, no particular shape. So this is a technique for exploring the body that you can use again, and you'll find it's different every time. Don't need to do it very often, but it's something that's worth trying to really get in touch with the sensations of the whole of the body, not just one part of it, not just the sensations that you're normally aware of, but the sensations which you're less frequently aware of, that are a little bit more subtle.
Mm. That was interesting. I was kind of keeping an eye on the board so I could let people in that were coming in later while we're in meditation. But I found that there was an image formed that was interesting. It had an interesting shape. The description was giving it, it was almost like it had a circle. There was a sensation at what seemed to be the elbow area, which created a circle dot on this some kind of a blob shape. I'm sure everyone had interesting diagrams. Maybe we should have a place where if you have a diagram you want to send to me that we can put up on the screen, send it to billfreeonline@gmail.com, and we'll play with that, put some diagrams up. If you have a set diagram, we'll just look at that for 5 minutes next week or something. That could be fun. Thank you for that. That was a nice walkthrough experience of meditation through the sensations.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if we have any questions on the board here. We have Rick has a couple of comments. Lindsay has a question. If experience is flowing with no divisions, seamless, then how is the perfume after an experience has vanished? There are no lines. How does one detect when something ends and another begins? Has to be a fraction of a second. That's an interesting question. In my what I'm seeing is that there's an expectation. There's something being expected.
Yes, it sounds like the perfume is being expected, and that's just something that that arises. The whole universe, all of experience, is moving all of the time. Even the things that appear to be static, mountains, everything is always moving. So all experience is moving. The times when we feel nothing is moving is when there's no experience taking place, and that's that will be awareness without objects, unless we're superimposing a blank state like we talked about before. But it's the natural gaps between experiences.
Can I jump in just because
yes, sure.
I don't know how to raise my hand on the technology. So everything else seems to be things that we can investigate. So this is one of those rare things that really can't be detected, so to speak. Or, I mean, a lot of my quote unquote progress is because I'll go out and take a concept and see if it's true. So in this case, it's just something, you're saying that the perfume is just something that is, and it's not really something that we can detect because it would put us in expectation. It's just, it is, we'll feel it at some point, but it's really, it just keeps I mean, like if you're going to, there's seeing going on and then you're seeing something else, but the perfume of the first scene, do you see what I'm saying? I mean, like the experience, how can you detect it if it's just flowing and there are no lines?
The perfume is not of the experience. The perfume, when Francis uses that term, he is referring back to a noumenal experience, not a phenomenal experience. So noumenal experiences are always there. So they might have different flavors, so beauty, love, truth, justice, all of the noumenal will take on different descriptions, although it's really the same experience. We describe it in different ways according to the context. But the perfume is part of the noumenal experience. So if there's if you're in touch with beauty, and then the context changes, and you're more in touch with truth, perhaps there's something more mental going on, so there's a background of truth, then the perfume from beauty may sort of infiltrate into the truth for a little bit, or then truth has its own perfume and that infiltrates into the next. So there's no division. The noumenal world has no divisions in it, and all there is, in a sense, there is only one noumenal experience, and that's the experience of ourselves. It's just that we describe it in different ways according to the context.
So this is really just about staying and allowing, receiving, not knowing, and just the perfume comes.
Don't look for any perfume.
Okay. All right.
Yes. If you experience the perfume, then that's great. I mean, it's like if you're doing one of Francis's meditations, then and then the meditation finishes and you get up and you go and cook dinner, then the perfume of that meditation will pervade the activity of cooking dinner. That's a noumenal experience.
All right. Thank you both. I understand that. Thank you.
It's almost like it's almost like there's no labels on it, even though you're using distinctions to put it to give it a context. There are no labels on the different characteristics of the perfume. It's an isness that is visceral. It's known, but it doesn't have a label.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Great distinction, Lindsay. Thank you for the question. And thank you
Yes.
for the answer, Jenny. Is there anything else that you have to say on this, Jenny, before I move to another page?
No, let's move on a little.
So on page 79, there's a question that says, sometimes I get a feeling of joy in my heart. It feels as though the heart doesn't have the capacity to hold it. Is there a connection between the joy and the silence? What a great question, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then Francis says, joy comes from silence. Silence expresses itself in many ways, and joy is one of them. We cannot experience the silence as an object. But when we direct our heart towards silence, one of its responses is joy. It fills us up with joy. Our body is taken by joy. Sometimes it is like an earthquake, and we feel that the body is not able to take it. We may feel that the body is not able to resonate with this dimension, and somehow that is true. But when we have these moments of grace, our body gives up some of its tension. The next time that we are taken by joy, it resonates a little better and opens up more until after repeated exposure, it becomes a perfect instrument. If we touch a violin with our hand, it cannot vibrate properly. We have to let go. In the same way, our body has to be completely expanded to become a perfect instrument of joy.
Yes, that's beautiful, and the analogy with the violin is lovely too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And my experience is that it's an ever expanded experience of presence or isness, or something that you just never, you no longer put a label on it. And joy is one of those. I think joy is like the word love. You really don't know what it means until you feel it, and when you feel it, you can't describe it or put a label on it.
Yes. Yes.
And silence provides that space.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, there's a good there's a great little comment on page 80 about the third paragraph down. The question at the top of the page says, does consciousness or silence only express itself in beauty rather than in feelings like fear or anger? Aren't these things also an expression of silence and consciousness? I felt like that was an interesting question. And of course, his answer, this is where I heard him in French. Yes, both the carrot and the stick take the donkey home.
Yes, yes, exactly. And really, in his answer, Francis is warning us not to just take what we've heard as a belief and repeat it to ourselves, and thereby use it as a means of escape from our suffering. We need to, as Lindsay was saying, to test everything out for ourselves, and that's important, because otherwise this teaching becomes a dogma, and we take standard phrases and sentences, and we repeat them, but we've never really checked them. And it's a good discipline never to say anything from this teaching unless you are experiencing that right now in this moment. And that was a discipline which Rupert taught me, in fact. But I think it's something that Francis suggests also.
Yeah. Yeah, he gives a good, we can so easily be caught in to concepts. I've never heard anyone say, use the suggestion that Advaita has the same way of becoming a rote ritual as other concepts like A Course in Miracles or other kinds of teachings. But he says in the third paragraph down, he said, we have to be very honest with ourselves. Is it really true of our own experience, what you were just saying, and what Lindsay was really, checking in on? Is it true of our own experience when we make these statements, or are we just appropriating the Advaita teaching in order to avoid having to face our own fear and anger? It is easy to tell. Just ask yourself if there is any desire to get rid of these feelings. If the answer is yes, then it shows that we do not deeply feel and understand that everything is an expression of consciousness.
Yes, exactly. That we can use the teaching as a dogma to comfort ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the right way to use it. The right way to use it is to investigate. Is it true?
Yeah.
If we feel we are unhappy, for example, because of some circumstances, then we, instead of saying, "Oh, the teaching says that happiness doesn't depend on circumstances, therefore I can't really be unhappy." That's covering it up. We need to really think hard, really look hard at those current circumstances and see whether happiness does depend on our situation.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be, I mean, that is the investigation. And then I I think the investigation also needs to sort of dissolve into nothingness.
Well, once the investigation has come to a conclusion, and that conclusion might be not knowing, but once it's come to a conclusion, automatically, what both Francis and Rupert say very, very firmly is never stop investigating while there's still something to investigate.
Yes. Yeah. Good wisdom in that.
Yeah.
He says at the bottom of that paragraph, of the next paragraph, however, if you understand and feel deeply that everything is an expression of consciousness, that's perfect. Live from that understanding and you will be a beacon. However, if it is not our experience that everything is consciousness, and if we have not come to the deep conclusion that it is so, then it means that some doubts and beliefs still remain. In this case, we have to investigate further.
Yes.
That's what you
Yes.
just said.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that they
Yes.
fit.
Yes.
If we do understand that it is true, although it may not conform to our actual experience, then we can provisionally take the attitude that everything is consciousness. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing needs to be different for me to experience perfect peace and happiness.
Yes.
That's a big, I mean, that's a big statement.
It's a very big statement, and it's one that gets tested during life and during life events, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have any questions? We have about 10 minutes left. Do we have any questions here on the board? Yes, that was a great experience. And Jenny is she's so brilliant at these meditations. I will accept any time that she offers. I definitely will say yes. How about y'all? Question: why is there a hesitancy to investigating? It took me years to try. Why is there a hesitancy to that? That's from Rachna. And also, Rachna, you mentioned Ellen's meetings. If you would you find the link to that and put it in the chat when you have a chance while we're getting an answer to your question? Why is there a hesitancy to investigating? What would you say that answer to that is?
Well, I think Rachna can only know for herself. I can say for myself that I studied what was supposed to lead to an understanding of non-duality, but it was a progressive path which took many decades. And investigating was never really suggested. When I look back at the part of this, part of the teaching I was following came from the Shankaracharya's teaching, and the original Shankaracharya, which Francis actually quotes in this first half of the chapter, he quotes from his Atma Bodha. He was really the founder of Advaita Vedanta. It's regarded as that. And when I look at the teachings of the Shankaracharya that I was following, when I look now, looking back at them, because I did a huge great index of them all, I discovered that yes, he was saying investigate, but not. He was saying bring up doubts and bring doubts to him, but of course we didn't have access to him. So I would bring doubts to the non-enlightened teachers that I had, who just dismissed my doubts with dogma. So that's what happened with me. So I don't know what happens with other people. I suspect it's very similar. I think what happens with any teaching ultimately is it becomes a religion and it becomes dogma. And if you preach the dogma, then you're regarded as very high up in that religion. And if you question it, then you're definitely very low down.
Well, it's also, I mean, the resistance to investigate is also a distraction, just to leave things as they are.
Yes, I think that there can be that too. Once we've understood that we need to investigate, then there's there's maybe a kind of feeling of protection of the separate entity that we believe ourselves to be, that comes into play there, that it feels if it goes too far, then it's going to investigate itself into nothingness, which in a sense it is.
Which and I don't think I think there's one of the often questions. A lot of people have endless questions for that sometimes, I mean, often the questions are a statement masquerading as a question, and it's a statement that says, "I know this is true. I know this is real. This is solid." And there's a question now. Prove to me why this is happening.
Yes, yeah,
And
yes.
so those kinds of questions are like they're like bunny. What do they call those? Bunny trails.
Right.
It's just a waste of
Yes.
time to keep the mind active and distracted from the silence, from the presence.
Yes, yes. It's really questions should come from our investigation when we come across something that seems to contradict the teaching, and then we ask that as a question, and people think, well, no, it's that would be very impolite to go on to one of Francis's satsangs and say, I don't understand why you say this. It doesn't correspond to my experience because of X, Y, and Z. But actually, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, right.
And
There's
it's something I do, and he's never objected.
right. Thank you for posting that link for Ellen Rachna. And then we have one more question, and then we'll be out of time, I think. Lindsay said, I've always heard about the attraction of the moth to the flame. Would the hesitancy towards investigation be deeply seated in fear? Fear that everything we've ever thought was true would be instead an illusion. That's scary as the heat of the flame.
Yes, it could be that relates to what I was saying about the separate self fearing its disappearance, and that's really what the image of the moth and the flame, which comes from an old Sufi text, the Conference of the Birds, if anyone wants to look it up. Also, if anyone wants to look up Atmaboda, Francis himself did a translation of it. You can find it on the Stillness Speaks website. So he's done his own translation.
Cool. Thank you for that. And is there anything you would like to say before we close? We have about 2 minutes left.
A lot of the rest of the chapter was really about this blank state, which I think we did cover quite well earlier. But there's some of the bits towards the halfway point are interesting, and I love the way that he ends, I think on page 85. The self is intelligence, beauty, and love. Since everything is the self, we should apply intelligence, beauty, and love to everything and see everything as intelligence, beauty, and love. And I feel that's a perfect way to experiment with this teaching, as well as investigating then part of investigating is experimenting, and that's a lovely experiment to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great way to point to just contemplation and using that quiet, the understanding as just a way of seeing, simply being.
Yes.
Yeah. I like his he uses several phrases in these pages. I like the phrase effortlessly aware.
Yes.
Effortlessly aware. Well, we're at the end of our time together, everyone. We'll pick up next week on page 85 and then go on from there for the rest of chapter 6. And thank you all for being here and for your participation and questions. And we'll see you next week. Have an awesome week. Bye, Jenny, and bye, everyone. Thanks for being here. If you had drawings and you want to send them to me, send them and I'll screen share them for fun next week. All right. Bye-bye,
Bye, Bill.
everyone.